Well, hello, everybody. Welcome into another ZBrush stream. My name is Ian Robinson, and I'm joined by Mr. Paul Gabry. How you doing,
I'm
buddy?
here. I'm here. Yep, I'm ready. I'm
You're
rocking
here?
and rolling, ready to go. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you checking
Thank,
in? You're ready to
thank-
go?
Thanks for having me, Ian. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah,
Nice to
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, we got to represent some new stuff happening. I'm sure everybody's. We already have people in the comment section being like, predictions. What are we gonna do? What's happening? So I'm super excited to have you come in and just do your tangents. Come in and talk about what's new, what's happening. So it's always a pleasure to have you on here. We don't see enough of you on here, Paul. So it's good to have you.
The cape is flowing for tangents, is what you're saying. There's going to be a lot of Captain Tangent happening over here.
Yep. And
Yep.
yeah, we cannot disappoint the audience. We have to throw in some dad jokes at some point. So that might happen. You never know.
Sure. All right.
Very cool. Well, just so everyone knows, we're here for a special live stream. So you guys already know what that is. If you're new here, if you're not new here, sorry. Wow, I just went that the other way around. If you're not new here, you know what's happening. But if you are new here, we're going to be showcasing some cool stuff that we've been working on within ZBrush. Some of it is in first iteration, and other aspects of it are definitely, just really to help you get your job done quicker, faster, more efficiently within ZBrush. So with me just rambling along, I'm actually going to pass the tangent torch to my buddy Paul, and we're going to show his screen, and we're going to get into some fun stuff. And of course, if you do have questions, we're doing a demonstration, but if you do have questions, we'll go through and maybe answer some questions towards the end. So as you're going through, we'll be monitoring the chat as always, but I'm going to let Paul take it away.
Okay, thanks, Ian. So let's get going. We're going to jump in here. So as Ian said, we're really excited about some things that we've been working on and developing. So this stream is going to be showing you guys some new features and a preview of some stuff that we have going on here. So here's something that Ian and myself are actually working on together. We're doing a little collab. So this is a project that we're working on, of going back to that classic 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and making our own little version of that. So we're going to cover some things that was done with what you're seeing here and showing us how these features are being used to create some of these examples here for us. So let's just start off with the octopus. Okay. So I'm going to turn off the full octopus here. So there's a list of subtools, and let's just have the head. So again, thinking about this in the context of being an artist, and in a lot of cases, I know some of you, and I know for me, sometimes in this case, maybe the ship or the sub, the Nautilus type of thing is in another project. And then now you're sculpting an octopus head in another one. So this is exactly what happened here. This is Ian's been working on the octopus. I've been working on the Nautilus ship thing here. So now we want to kind of put them together. So here's the thing though, when you're doing this and you're working, these are all sitting in their own, obviously, space, and they're not necessarily working together right now. So there's something new that we've done here to contact. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm in the tool palette. So I'm going to come all the way down here to contact. So there's these contact points here. So what we're going to be able to do now is I'm going to switch to this old school tool that you all should still be using here, this transpose line. So I'm going to click a point on the octopus, and then I'm going to click on a point here on my ship. I'm going to say, give me that as a contact point, right? So I want to make sure that, again, I want to have that selected, and then say, I want this to go from there to say, oh, let's go from there to there. Okay. And then going back to the contact points, we'll make a point and hit apply. And then you see the octopus automatically moves. So the idea here is normally, right, what we would do is go back. We probably have something like the gizmo, and we would start probably adjusting and moving around our camera and doing things like this, right, to start really figuring this out. So what we're trying to do is figure out, hey, I want to get to that point a little bit faster. So by switching to the transpose line, I can now just switch and say, you know what, I want to go from there to there. Let's make that a contact point. And then you can see he actually moves, and you can see there's rotation happening as well. So we're looking at the bottom of this and then looking at where this other point is living on the other subtools. And again, as you saw, this ship is made up of multiple subtools. So I can delete and then make a new one and keep moving this around and then figure out any other positions that I might want. So this is just using one contact point, right? So you can see it can start making some really quick adjustments. Go ahead. You got something?
I was gonna say, so in I guess the easiest way to say it too, the fastest point from A to B is a straight line, and that's what we're using transpose for. Like, just stick it on there quick, because like you showcased too. I don't know about anybody else in the chat, but I do this all the time. Where I'm constantly moving an object around with the gizmo and trying to get it exactly where I want. This just snaps it right to that point, and this just makes trying to find new iterations faster. So I've been already loving this feature.
Right, and you can still, bring your gizmo and use it, right? So you're using both things together in a way here. So in essence, what you're trying to do is I'm just trying to position him really fast and get him where I want to go. And we're going to show more examples of this as we move along. So this is kind of now where I want to go. Now, right now, this octopus obviously doesn't have all of his tentacles. So I want to start making some tentacles. So this is something that we can start doing. So I'm going to switch to the curved tube brush. So I want to just start drawing out one tentacle. So in essence, I'll go a little bit bigger brush size, and I just want to start drawing something out and have that positioned, right? So here's the thing now. We've got this, but now I need it to start interacting with this submarine a little bit. I need some things to be able to start looking like it's gripping this, right? I've got the head position kind of where I want it. Now I want to start playing with these tentacles that we have here. So I'm just doing the simple curved tube. I'm going to delete that. And something now that is in version 1 right now, this is kind of like showing you guys early look into the versions of ZBrush, but this has been really exciting to play with and really great to work with. So we want to show you guys where already this is at and this state. So I'm going to switch to a new brush that's going to be called Anchors. So this brush is going to allow me to give me some more power to do some really big changes, movements, and things to my model. So I'm going to, just for the sake of us understanding, I'm going to also split this off and make this its own subtool. So now I've got this guy being its own. So they're separated from the head, because I'm going to start manipulating this a lot. And I want to show you this in action for us all. So now, like, okay, well, if this is really going to be an octopus tentacle, you can see this brush has various actions that we can do. So there's things like move, rotate, scale, inflate, and twist. Again, this is version 1. So we've got a lot of other ideas here, but we're really excited to show this. So I'm going to start with just inflate. So what do? All you do is you say, okay, I want to make a point here, and I want to make a point at the end. So you can see there's 2 dropped anchor points now here. Okay, and now I come over here and I can just say, do I want to inflate this up or do I want to inflate this down? Obviously, as something that we're making here, an octopus, we'd want this, inflate this down, right? So now I'm going to even say, let's divide this up a little bit, and let's go into geometry. Let's delete those, and then let's switch to what all of us are using a lot. Let's switch to some Dynamesh. Let's get that resolution. I'm going to go a little bit lower because I want to start manipulating this a little bit more. Okay. So right out the gate, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, yeah, I think a lot of us still use Dynamesh. And so, yeah, this is a very useful feature. And also, too, some people are already asking, like, if they missed something, because I think we always go super quick. But yeah, so just real quick. So the first thing Paul showed, which this will be recorded and up for VOD, so you guys can always come back and check it out. But the first thing was the addition to contacts. So no worries. But yeah, Paul's now. Go right ahead, buddy.
Yeah, so the idea here is it's just 2 points, right? And you just click and drag, and you can see I'm inflating along the whole surface. But, I can continue now manipulating this. I can make 2 more points and see I can start playing with just the end and have them go at the end if I want to, inflate that up a little bit more, or, I want to inflate it down a little bit more. Now that inflation's only happening between those 2 points. It's not inflating the whole tentacle in this case, right? So it's giving us some control here. So what it also starts to do, let's have a little bit more fun. Let's go back to the very top maybe, and let's go again to the end, and let's switch to something like rotate. So now you can also start rotating and moving. So you can see I'm just changing the whole rotation of the whole arm that we originally laid out here. Okay. And then once, I want to start getting a little bit more defined down here, then I can start, I want to go from this point to maybe this point. And on top of that, we can now throw in some masking here, right? So now, and then blur that. So now the top part of this tentacle is masked off. So now I'm going to start rotating this around. So now I'm just going to start, in essence, manipulating this to be in a better position for me to start having it wrap around this ship. Now, what's really also nice keep it kind of just moving a little slow here so you guys can grasp all this. Right now we have 2 points. Here's something that's really awesome about this brush that we're all using. I'm going to show you another example here in a second. So when you're making these points, okay, you've got your points. And again, I'm in rotation mode right now. And then now I see I can move this around. But what's really nice is I really want to start twisting this a little bit more. Well, actually rotating this on itself a little bit more. So I got 2 points. So I can kind of walk this tentacle with the points. So I just keep dropping points. And then you can see I can adjust my mask if I want to. And then blur that. And then I'll start adjusting this, right? So this is allowing me to walk through that tentacle. Okay, so as another example, let's take something that a lot of us are maybe doing. Let's take a character like this, okay? And let's say I want to, we'll stay out of symmetry mode for now, right? At this moment, we're going to do a quick lasso mask, right? I'll blur that a little bit. Okay, so the point here too is the model is sitting at about 1 million polygons. So let's make some anchors on this now. So I'm going to stay in rotation. I'm going to make the draw size smaller so you guys can just visually see this. I can make a little bit of points there. And then now rotate that leg out a little bit. Now you say, okay, I want to rotate down here by the knee. And you can see I moved the 2 points from here down towards the knee. So right now you get 2 points with this brush. Now, just like when you're doing things with the transpose line, think about this as an infinite line action here. So what I mean by that is think there's a line connecting these 2 points, but then it's infinite this direction and infinite this direction. So with that mindset, I want to now also be able to manipulate the points themselves. So what I mean by that is I want to scroll over, and you can see when you scroll over here, I'll go with the smaller draw size. When you scroll over, see it gets highlighted, any one of these points as I move them. So when I have this highlighted, I can reposition these anywhere that I want to. So I can move it around and again, highlight it. And what I'm doing is, and I'm going to click, and then you can do control, click, and control. And then now I can rotate this leg a little bit more differently and say, okay, that's going to fit more in there. Maybe do a little bit more of that. Let's continue this process. Let me come down towards the foot, come into down here, make 2 new points, something like this. Maybe manipulate this, start manipulating this. But I also want to maybe switch to something like twist. And now I can see twist the foot a little bit, have a little bit more twist in the leg. So this is just thinking about it in the sense of using it on a body. Now, what also is nice about this is think about this as a brush. So this is about using it within the processes that we have with inside of ZBrush. So I'm going to throw something else on this process now. So we've got, again, a model that's been sculpted on. This is Steve Jubinville's model. Steve, if you're watching, thank you. This is an old model he did years ago. So we're having some fun with it. So I'm going to now bring in proxy pose. So I can say, you know what, I want to get this model down to a lower cage, right? So proxy pose is going to allow us to get a lower version of the model. So when I let go, instead of being at 1.3 million, now I'm sitting at 21,000. So this is still also going to work. So I can start now doing, again, another mask because I really want to right now move this one arm. And yes, before it comes, this will work in symmetry mode, which I'll show you guys in a little bit too. So I'm going to go back to rotation. Little fun fact for those that don't know too, you can actually switch through these modes on the top. And this is with any insert mesh brush or VDM brush. I'm just using the arrow keys. So for those that you want to move quickly through these, I can just use the arrow keys. I don't even have to go up to the UI. And obviously I can keep an eye on the alpha. I can keep an eye up here, and you can see which one is being highlighted as I go through those arrow keys. And this is just the state you can do with anything inside of ZBrush when you have a brush like this selected. So let's go back to the rotate. Yo, go what?
That's exactly how I was using that brush. I was using the arrow keys because usually I have my keyboard just above my tablet. And so I would be, all of the tentacles you see in the octopus scene that's on screen right now, all of these tentacles were made just using the curve tube and then using this anchor. And yeah, I would just switch between those arrow keys, and it's super fast and efficient to just start moving stuff around, especially with something as organic as an octopus. Getting those different tentacles moving, I was like, the fastest way to do it, and this brush became that answer.
Yeah. So like, think about it in this sense, right? I want to change. Remember, this guy, we're in proxy pose now. He's got sculpted detail, which is a lot more detail than what we're looking at. And now I just, again, I want to come down and say, okay, I want to make a point here and a point here. I'm in rotate mode. And then I can start, walking down the arm and making changes down the arm. So again, we can delete points as well, the 2 points, by holding the Alt key. So I'm going to come back again. So I want to really iterate this because I was using this ability a lot. In essence, making my 2 points. Then I start to rotate around. And I say, okay, that part's good. Then I come into here, and then I want to rotate that down. Then I can come in here and start rotating that. And then now I come through here, right? And again, I want to look at maybe doing a little bit of wrist movement. So I can make, again, this point now becomes that point. This is why we've set this system up, because it was really fast to move down a mesh and start changing things. So then again, switching to twists, again, you can do it either way with the arrows, and then I can go along that line. So this is really important. Remember if I said, okay, look at these 2 points connected, and then there's an infinite line. So if you notice, when I'm doing this twist, I am pulling towards that dot or away from that dot, right? The other one that's not selected right now. And same thing if I go to this one. So see, now the upper arm is twisting instead of the hand, because now this, from this point on, is what's twisting and what you're going to have going on. Okay, so but the benefit here is, once again, we are in proxy pose. So even though all this kind of movement that I'm kind of doing through here and going through the process, I would also recommend, I found myself a lot switching to a brush like this, which is being able to do a mask by topology, right? Using your gizmo. And in this case, I'm using the transpose line. So again, you could use either one of these actions to do that. And then you can start making your points of interest there, and then start switching to your rotate and start switching things. And then there's a lot of different ways to start manipulating and using this. And so now that we have this in place, I want to get back all that sculpted detail. So I just unproxy pose, and you can see everything comes back. Okay, so it's a combination of changing the form, putting some action in this character in this case, but then going back to this, right? We were trying to look at this in the sense, oh, I want to start making some changes to this tentacle, right? So just making some points. Again, I'm in rotation mode, and then just start moving this in a different location where I maybe want this to fit a little bit different. And it's just nice. And then I can just keep walking down, making some changes that I want to make. Maybe now I want this to actually come off the ship. I want more of a tentacle that comes off the ship like this, right? And it just opens some things up. So then obviously my next process would be, okay, I've got this one tentacle in the place. And as you can see in the image, all the tentacles in the bottom left corner were done with this brush and then with this exact workflow. So the next thing then I would want to do then is ZRemesh this. I want to get some clean topology. So again, that doesn't matter what the topology is, this brush is going to work. So if I want to continue manipulating things, right? See, I can continue to manipulate, no problem. And then just keep walking down and doing. So you see how the top part's moving? Because it's seeing that line. So I'm going to again say, you know what? I only want to really move this bottom portion through here, right? And then start positioning this where I want. Just the freedom now that I have to move things around really opens up for me, right? And again, this is now a divided mesh, okay? So with this in mind, I'm going to solo this out, so then we're just looking at this. Let's switch to a different brush now. And now we start thinking about moving on the process also, and start thinking, oh, now I want to start sculpting some stuff on here. Mr. Damien, gave us that amazing brush that a lot of us use, the Damien standard brush. I start sculpting some detailing through here, things like this, right? So if we're doing something like this, an octopus, right? It's obviously it's got defining things in its anatomy through here, and ideally through this portion, we want to have some kind of little, I don't even know what the official word. We all just call them suctions.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I know there's an official word of what they're called, but I don't know what it is.
You know what? I'll look it up as we go through. But yeah, I just call them suckers. They're just suckers.
And you seem to make that noise every time you're using the brush. So
yep,
it's a habit. You just got to do it, right? All right. So thinking about this again, let's divide up a little bit more. Let's be around that 1.3 million just so we can see. So Ian's made this brush that has a bunch of different, in his terminology, suckers. You got to do that noise too, right? So obviously you can sit here now, and these are VDMs, and we can draw out some suckers and place them.
Okay, hold on. I just
you got the actual terminology now.
Yeah, octopus's suction cups. And
that's
they
the
do not
name.
Apparently they call them suction cups. Fun fact: octopuses can have up to 280 suction cups, and most of them don't have teeth. There you go. Random Google fun fact.
Look at that. You come to look at ZBrush and you learn a fun fact about an octopus. Yay. That's awesome. All right. So moving on here. Okay. So what we're doing, we're walking you through kind of the process, our thought process here, and showing you some new stuff to go with this. So we can draw individually out. You know what? I'd rather switch my stroke to something like dots. Okay. Then I'm going to come in here and I want to tell, hey, in the lazy mouse, there's a stepping here. So with lazy mouse on, and now that I'm in dots, I can start drawing out, you know, like this. And obviously changing my draw size changes the size of this, right? So we can come through here, change your draw size. Now start through this process. So you can see, but there's things that are going to happen maybe as I'm going along here, i.e. I'm not starting at the right point of interest here, okay? Which it's possible to do that, but I want to highlight something new here. So we've divided this up to 1.3 million, right? And now I'm trying to add some detailings in here, and I am not getting exactly every suction cup where I want it to go. So I'm going to walk back down in my subdivision levels, and I'm going to go, not just that, I'm going to go to your undo history. I'm going to make a marking point. So I'm going to hold Control and click on this. So I'm walking backwards in my undo before I made any of these suction cups. I'm going to come back to the state that I am. And what we've now added to ZBrush is with the undo history, you all can now use your morph brush. So now I can go through and get rid of the ones that I do not want, like that one I don't want there. And then this is really opened up for us at any undo point history here. I can start doing a morph. So instead of, hey, I didn't make that morph target at the beginning, right? This was a process. I didn't come down here into my morph target and set a morph target. I wasn't thinking that way as I was working. I just started laying down these suctions and then decided, hey, some of these aren't positioning where I want to do. We have now opened up you to do this. So what this is doing now, that marker is always there for me. So even when I switch and I start doing individually, so we turn off lazy mouse and we go to drag rect now, I can now just quickly, you know, make my own. And like Ian said, they have more than what you're saying. So now this is how I can start bringing in some of that asymmetry maybe that I want to have and not make everything so perfect. But as even though all these strokes I'm making, okay, I have at any point in time, because I've made this undo marker and this is holding the Control key and clicking on that, I just switch back to that beautiful morph brush, which I'm sure many of us in the stream are using. And then I can get rid of what I want, right? So I can say, oh, I don't want these little ones here anymore. Or you just want to maybe blend between them and just like drop it back a little bit. And with that said, you can also say this one, you know, I can inflate them a little bit more with the morph. So I'm using the Alt key now. We'll go a little bit bigger. And I can actually just exaggerate even what was done in the original sculpt.
So I think we basically just gave people an excuse to save ZBrush projects more often with their undo history applied, so then they can go back and make these changes. Because I think it's fair to say this is now like infinite morph targets. You can pretty much just go back any point in your history and start making changes. Would you agree?
Yeah, like this opens up a lot of things for us all, right? It's so you're going to have this now, all this undo. Think about it as you've been working and sculpting on stuff. You're constantly, every stroke you're making an undo point. So at any point in that model that you're working on that, you can walk backwards, store that undo history, come back, and then blend between things. You don't have to remember to create the original morph target in this way. So it really opens up a lot of things for us, for sure. Right? So this is something new as well that you guys are going to have. And I think this really opens up some more freedom for me, experimenting and thinking some things through, right? Especially, you know, if I don't like what I did right there, you could then go all the way back to that state, right, that we were at before, and then save that morph target too. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just going through my undo history, and at any point in time, you hold Control, you click and see it was there before, right? So here, we'll do this. Okay, so you see where that marker is right now? So this is this undo. Okay, so if I hold Control and click, that is the new state. So now the morph brush is only going to work with the strokes that are done between here and where it's currently sitting at. So there now will be some of these suction cups, there's nothing's going to happen to them. See, but see now I'm bringing some back, but the ones up here, nothing's going to happen to them. And then down here, see, nothing's happening to them, because this is where I was messing around with adding a little bit of change to some of these. All right. Cool. Good to move on to another new addition here.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add too with this, something that I kind of stumbled across when I was playing with this, was I had changed the position of the tentacle a little bit, and then I didn't like quite where it was at, but I liked one portion of where the tentacle was at. So I actually used the morph target brush, and I started painting back in that point of history, and it moved my tentacle back to that original position where I liked it, but I was still able to step forward and kind of snap through the history. So I feel like there's a lot more freedom to try some things instead of just Control-Z all the time. Try a few things and then use that morph target brush, paint it back, see what the results that you're actually getting. So, and to just remember, like Paul is saying, when you target that point in history where you hit that control state, it's going to go back to that point. So anything forward from that, you're going to be able to change and adjust. So it's a really helpful tool. And yeah, for those suckers, drawing them out with that VDA.
Yeah, you got to think in this sense, everybody, right? I see it coming up in the comments. You now have two brushes that completely, no matter where undo, what things you've done to your model, you can get back to any state now, right? Because we have already the history recall brush, which is using the undo history to recall things. The difference is here, the history recall brush, it doesn't matter what the mesh is. It could be, the early cycle could have been a Dynamesh, and now it's a ZBrush. The other, it could be anything. It could be a decimated mesh. It could be scan data, where the morph brush is looking at polygon, right? So the polygon count needs to be the same, right? Because that's how a morph is. It's looking at the state of the polygon count. But now I have this freedom to use both. I can use either one. But the difference being is the history recall brush is using a projection. Morph is not. It's morphing between the two states. This is why the polygon count needs to be the same, because there was the original state at what it was sitting at, and then now there's the new state, and it's the same vertex. So we're just morphing between those two states. That's why it's called a morph brush. And someone, Blood Rapper, you're asking, in essence, this is an eraser brush. The morph brush itself is the eraser brush, right? Because at any point in time, again, coming back to this tentacle, any point in time, I can go back and go all the way to the state before I started, and I'm just going to, let's go back to here. Okay, and then now I've got a new state, undo state, and I can go backwards and then now switch, and then I'm on the morph brush, and then see, now I can get rid of all these. See, I'm erasing this. So I'm not just morphing between it, I'm also erasing it. Okay, so hopefully that helps. This is a new part of ZBrush. This is going to be part, you're going to get, stay tuned, you're going to hear more about this, the things that we're covering. Okay. All and right. Then go ahead, because this, I just want to add to this, right? Let's not think about.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking the tension because Michael Pavlovich just made me laugh. He was like, "Did you sell It's Morphin Time t-shirts on the ZBrush store?" We should totally do that.
That would be a good one.
I'm sorry, he broke me. I had to share that with you.
He has been broken, Pavlovich. Good job. Right, and again, combining all this stuff again, right? We have these anchor points that I can draw out now, and I can still rotate this even after the fact. I've remeshed, I've done some stuff. There's a rotate and move. So in this case, if you want to rotate and also move at the same time, for something like this, like a tentacle, this is really nice, right? And then see, I can continually walk up, change some things, and manipulate this in a different way, right? And you can squeeze it a little bit. So this is moving and rotating. So again, the key point here is there's different ways to look at this, right? We can switch to the twist and then start twisting this along the way. So even after this state, this is a proxy pose. I unproxy pose it. I'm going to get back all my subdivision levels with everything that I've done. So everything is still there. We're good to go. Okay, so moving forward, though, thinking about things that we're going to continually do with this, I'm going to unsolo this. Let's go back to this guy. And let's take a look at this. We'll solo this out so we're just really paying attention to this. So again, this is a project that Ian and I are working on together. We're collaborating here. So he's working on starting to add some details into this. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of my undo state. I'm going to switch to the standard brush now. And one way that we've always been able to add details is using textures and alphas to go about adding these details, right? So I'm going to say I want to bring in a texture. Okay. So we've got a couple textures here as an example. So let's use this one right here. So I'm not going to painstakingly, again, you can hit import and then just import it. So I'm going to select that texture, and this right here, I'm going to say add it to Spotlight. So you guys can add this to Spotlight through the texture palette, or you can come over here into alpha and you can do the same thing. So if you had an alpha selected, okay, so if I say I want, like, I don't know, let's alpha 6, okay, and then see right here, I can add that. So see, there's 2 alphas now. So you can add to Spotlight in any way that you want. You can through the texture and alpha. So I am a big fan of Spotlight because of things, especially like this with the octopus. I would want to do something like this. I would want to scale down this image probably. I'm actually going to put it off here into the corner, right? And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on pin, and then I'm going to turn on Spotlight. This is why it's called Spotlight, right? Is this part. It's shining a spotlight on this alpha. All right. And the reason why I'm going to put the pin on is this. I can now, wherever my brush goes, you can see that spotlight image is attached to the brush. So this is why I am a big fan of using something like Spotlight, because now obviously what I want to do, we'll turn off the alpha on the brush because I just want to use only the model in here, right? And then I want to start sculpting some details through here. Okay, so you can see you can just start moving along and just making some simple brush strokes. And the benefit here is because it's attached to the brush, I can just keep moving. I don't need, and this is why I like doing this, I can just keep rotating the model. Okay, I don't need to put the model underneath the image. I don't need to align it to the image. I can just keep moving along here and adding details. Okay, so for those that maybe have never used Spotlight, this is pretty awesome. All right, and I'm just using this in conjunction. So there is a lot of stuff we can do in Spotlight. The one thing, though, that becomes really important for us is how are these images, in essence, interacting with the surface? What is it doing to the surface as we're manipulating it? The Spotlight that we all have right now, when you start pushing on the surface, okay, there's a pushing out that's happening. So in essence, you're changing a little bit of your silhouette as you're sculpting. So what we've added is something new to the Spotlight. So in the brush palette, under samples, this is where the brush settings for Spotlight live. So there's always been this Spotlight projection. This is telling ZBrush to project the images into the model. And you can paint with these images as well with Spotlight. So now you have 2 other sliders. Okay. So I'm just catching up. Wait, am I popping? Is my audio popping? Is that, or Matt, you're just popping with joy?
No. That's a term. He's excited.
Okay.
That's how I've been taking it. So Matt, you got to clarify now, buddy.
Right. So this is the other thing now we've added a mid value. So this is going to be pretty much the same thing that we have a mid value in our alpha palette, and we have a modify, and we have a mid value here. So now there's always been a mid value in your alpha, but that is because those are with an alpha attached to a brush. This is now using Spotlight, and now you have a mid value here. So what exactly is this doing? So I'm just going to put this at 50, okay, and then go back into here. All right. And then now I want to start sculpting with this in here. Okay. So again, we've got this image. It's pinning it to here. And then I'm using the Spotlight feature. And then now I just start sculpting. So you can see it's really just giving a little bit. And here we'll even crank up the intensity now. And it's just giving a little bit of detail changes right through here. So I want to kind of change this and understand this a little bit better. So let's make this a little simpler here. Let's switch to a plane. Okay. And let's go ahead and make that a poly mesh. Let's look at the front of the plane. Let's divide this up a little bit so we've got some information here. That's probably, I might want to go one more. All right. Let's go back into Spotlight. All right. So we've got this alpha. I'm now going to switch to this alpha. So this is just a radial dial. This will hopefully, I want to explain to you a little bit of what's happening here when you're going to use the mid value for you. Okay. So I'm going to now attach to that so you can see this is what I have. Okay. So if we go drag rectangle and then I start drawing this out, this is what we're going to get. Okay. You're going to just get a shape that is doing something like this. Okay. So this right now has got mid value set at 50. So let's just take a look. Let's turn mid value off right now. Let's put that at 0 and let's do something like that. Okay. And then let's do a mid value of 25. And then I'm just going to put that one over here now. Let's do that. Okay. And then let's do a value of 50.
And while Paul's dragging all this stuff out too, something that I wanna also kind of like maybe just throw and plant the seed a little bit is that this, when you're thinking about texturing your character or your scene, and you're trying desperately to match up those alphas before, and you're trying desperately to make sure that everything lines up correctly, right? Because you're painting everything. This is something too that's going to help you with that blending action a lot, making things look a little bit more natural and making things seem a little bit more like it was an organic thing, and not always having that kind of repetitive feel back and forth. So this is something that's really helped with that type of process as well.
Right. So I want to show this. So if you look, if I turn this plane and we'll take perspective off, you guys can see there's different heights here. So you can really see what's going on here. So this one is, it's the mid value was off. This one was at 25. This one was at 50. This is at 75. And this is at 100%. So what's happening here is that mid values, in essence, looking at that alpha, seeing the gray values within that alpha. And then I'm setting with this slider at what gray value do things only push in and what gray values do things push out. All right. So the popping off thing's confusing me because it's thinking my audio is popping.
No, you're going.
All right. I'm going. Okay.
Okay, hold on.
So this is like just a simple example for you guys just to capture the idea here. So if you now look at what I just said, when this is at 25%, you can see some of the surface was getting pushed in, but a lot of it was still getting pushed out, right? And then when we went to 50, more it was pushing in, 75 more, and then you see at 100, everything was getting pushed in. So if you look silhouette-wise, here's the plane. You can see everything now only got pushed in. Compared to before this slider, you guys would only get this. This is what you would get, okay? So let's now take this. One other thing I want to highlight now, another slider, and we're going to use the other image too. So if you notice this quality of this alpha is not the best. It's like, I think 32 pixels by 32 pixels. So you can see there's a little bit of some noise in there. So let's undo some of this right in here, right? So let's go backwards. And now another slider that we have, so we'll start with 0 again, is a alpha blur. So now I can put this in here. Again, we're at the main value. So I can say, let's go all the way with that. And you can see that is very different. Then let's go through this process again, right? And thinking about what I'm going to do through here, right? And then say, there is that value. And then now just continue this idea that we already started with. And you can see the blurring now that's happening to alpha also is making a difference to how this is going into the surface, right? So this blur is now blurring the whole alpha, but you can see there's different heights happening through here. But now there's a lot of blurring happening. So let's take now this simple concept and let's go back to this, okay? I'm going to unpin this time, all right? And I'm going to move this over. So this is where the difference is. I can snap images where I want them to be. So you can't do this with an alpha attached to a brush. I can move these where I want. I can manipulate these alphas. I can change these alphas. I can combine alphas all within in here, okay? So I'm going to snap this to the center of this plane this time, and I'm going to cover this image so it's a little bit more something like this, okay? And then now looking at this, let's go back down to having no spotlight, mid-value, and absolutely no blur here at all, okay? And then we'll say, let's go full intensity on this brush so we can just really see what we're doing here. Right? So you can see this is just pushing out the surface, right? It's just pushing on that surface. So we can really see what is going on here. So we go to the side, you can see there's a lot happening here.
Peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys.
Peaks and valleys. Peaks and valleys. Okay, so let's do this just so we can do a comparison. All right, let me switch back to my handy dandy masking pen. Let's just do half of it this time. Let's do something like this. And you know, for the sake of just, now let's keep it at 100. And then now I'm just going to draw out. And then now we have something like this happening. Okay. I'm going to inverse my mask. And then the only thing I'm going to change is the mid value. Let's put it at 50 this time. All right. And then now let's pull on the surface and then do that. So when I turn, look at the difference that you have here. Okay. If you can look how extreme, look at this point where it's sitting now and that point in the original version. All right. So let's look at this now Obviously, if I was sculpting this, I wouldn't go with this high of intensity. I'd probably be sitting way more down in here. So let's do, again,
Yeah, it's
let's
a
do
bit
this one.
extreme. Just a
Something
little
more.
bit.
Yeah, something more like that. That's probably more I'd probably want to live in. Let's inverse it, right? That's the mid value now on the left. Let's have no mid value. And then now let's do that, right? And you can see the exact stepping that has happened. You can see the bridging that's happening here. And let's even do this now. Let's take this half. Let's mask that out. And let's go to our handy deformation and let's put it back to just being a flat plane. Right. And now what this is really going to show you all is what I am controlling now as the artist when I'm using Spotlight is how is being pushed into the surface and being pulled out of the surface. And I'm controlling that with this mid value. So with it off, right, we were getting this. Everything was being pushed out, regardless if there was cavity or any convex or concave within the alpha. This version, right, is not doing that now. I said 50. So only some of it, if you look, only some of it is even going past the plane. So my plane is living right here. Like where this cursor is right now, that's where the plane lives. So you can see how much higher the furthest stroke is compared to this stroke. There's barely anything out. And then this is the original position of the plane, this right here. So this is what that slider is really now giving us the ability to control for us when we're starting to use things like Spotlight. Because I saw someone said, why wouldn't I just use an alpha on a brush? That's it. The problem with that is that's it. That's all you have is the alpha attached to the brush. Spotlight has so many more things that you can do with it and manipulating. You can combine alphas, you can manipulate alphas, you can clone from one alpha to another. There is a lot that you can do with this. Okay, so I would recommend really taking a look at this. And there's just so much, like, see, look, I'm adding alpha. So this middle alpha now in here, right? You can see I can add things to it. I can copy alphas and have them floating, okay, and going wherever I want, right? Remember that other texture too? Then in here, if I want to bring this now into Spotlight, okay, I can manipulate this, put this somewhere else where I want to do. I can say snap, put that down, and boom. This is now, see, one alpha. You can't do this with a brush. Okay, and then there's even cloning ability. So Spotlight really opens up a lot more things. You can align things, especially if you're trying to do a pattern. I can align this to the mesh wherever I want. So you can even snap to underlining mesh, right? So if we look at this, if we turn this off and we switch to something like our demo head, right? Just again, to really hit this on the head for everybody can understand. So this is now I'm moving, but you can see it's snapping right to his nose. Boom. It's snapping to the top of his head, right? So there's a lot of things that I can take advantage in Spotlight that I can't do with just coming here and attaching an alpha to a brush. It's opens up way more things that you can do. Okay. So again, that's something new that we've added and expanded upon the capability of what you can do with Spotlight. So I want to come back to something else though now. I want to come back. Let's look at this and let's now look at what we started this whole stream with again. Let's revisit this. Let's come back into this and say, all right, this part where we started where he was just floating above and we were just positioning where we want him to go. Let's do that with something else now. Let's do something like this. Let's turn off the octopus right now where he's at. And let's take a look at this. So right now in the design of this, we've got this cover sitting where it is. So let's think about this in an artistic more sense. Okay, this is a subtool through the list here. You can see it right there. I'm actually going to duplicate this now. Now I've got a duplicated version. I'm going to switch to Gizmo. I'm going to position this up. And I'm actually going to come into the gear and say, you know what? I want to get a cylinder now. So this cylinder is a lot bigger, right? So I'm going to hit the W key. I'm going to say, let's size this way down. Let's do, say, something like this. Let's position this here. Let's add some rotation to this. Maybe put something like that. And then maybe it sits like this. You know, I'm going to clean this up really quick. So I'm going to come into my creasing. Let's crease so I can just get a nice looking cylinder. Because now maybe I want to change the design of this. So here's the thing. I've already drawn out where that cover is, right? So I'm going to go back up to that cover. And I use the up arrow key, by the way. So you can use up arrow keys and down arrow keys to switch between subtools. So you can see right over here. You can see the subtool switching. I'm not actually touching the subtool here, and I'm not touching this. I'm using my keyboard, which are the up and down arrow keys. So now looking at this, this is now sitting completely somewhere else in space. And in fact, it doesn't even matter if I do even something like this. What we can now, again, thinking about this, I can now switch to this transpose tool. I can click here and then say click there. Okay, and then now coming back down into here, coming back into our contact, I can say make that a contact point and apply. And then boom, it's right in position. Snap to position. It's looking at normal to normal, right? You also, what I really want to highlight too is I can now switch to rotation, and then I can rotate this and reposition this. And you can see the transpose line is also being moved and snapped into, like, so now maybe I want the handle to be over here now, somewhere else, right? And come in here, I can switch to scale. I can scale this down, scale this up if I want to. I can switch to move, and then I can move this in space. And do I want to now move it along that exact line? And maybe I want it to sit like that instead. So immediately when you're doing these contacts, it's putting it not only in the location, rotating it to where it needs to be sit, so it is aligned. It's also realigning the transpose line so we can quickly manipulate. And so instead of really thinking about what we have now, like really think about this. Old school way would have been like, okay, I got to figure out how to get this over here, rotate this, right? This was just a longer process. And then, and frankly, we're have to eyeball some of this stuff. Now we don't. We don't have to eyeball.
So for everyone asking like, hey, can I snap a point to a point? Yeah, you contact it. Let it make contact.
Here, I'll show another example I think that also can help just understand this a little bit. So this was even for myself when we were developing this, thinking about this and thinking about just me as a user gaining control now of how I can manipulate these meshes now. So this is just an easy thing with a cone, right? Off in a different part of space, switching to my transpose line. I'm just hitting the Y key, by the way. Why, you ask? Because that's the shortcut. Oh, nice, really bad jokes there. Yeah. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Use it. Don't use it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. All right. So again, thinking about this is you can click from there to there. Again, come back down into my contact. Boom, hit apply. There it is. So you'll notice that there are other contacts. There's not just one. There are more than one. So there is contact point 2, contact point 3. Okay, so as a user, let's delete the contact point that I have. I can say, so you see this alignment of this cone that I have? I can actually tell ZBrush, you know what I'd rather do? I'd rather, okay, take this point of that cube, make that contact point 1, take the tip of this and make that contact point 2, and now apply. And you can see the orientation is now maintained of the cone to the sense of there's still, it's not sitting, right? There's still, see a little bit of the angle that I had originally on the cone, but now it's aligned between those 2 points. And you can see that very clearly right here. You can see how that is aligned, right? So, because this was my first contact point, this is my second contact point. So it kept rotation of that cone, but then changed the alignment to follow along those points. So you don't want it, you don't have to just use one point. Okay. So this is, you know, looking for aliens, you know, to the point of Jodie fostering over here. So with that said, you have obviously 3 contact points. So if we delete these, I then as a user can even, if I look at this in a circular motion, I can control how this cone's even gonna, do I want it to point up? Do I want it to point down? Right? By one contact point, it's looking from the vertex normal to the vertex normal. But I might want to also start controlling. So I can say, okay, this is this one to this one. That's contact point. And then I'm going to go around from there to there, contact point 2, there to there, contact point 3, and apply. So you see the cone's now down. I'm controlling that by where I am putting those points of interest. Now I can't get Jodie Foster out of my head. It's in my head. Sorry, O'Fair. Sorry. It's what we do. When we do streams, we come up with verbiage that just like, why are we calling it this? You know, it's just how we roll. Okay.
Make contact.
So the point of the 3 contact points is it is not only is it moving and aligning, it's also rotating. So the third point right? So think about it in this sense. The only one contact point, we're looking at vertex to vertex and then boom, aligning it and rotate and putting it in that position. Okay. 2 contact points is keeping orientation a little bit, but then realigning that orientation to where you selected. 3 contact points is doing all 3 things, right? It's realigning, it's rotating, right? And putting everything. And then now I'm controlling. I wanted the cone down in this scenario, not up. So I'm using those 3 points to manipulate that and change that, right? Because if we go backwards, I went here to here, then here to here, and then here to here. So if you look at it in clockwork fashion, ZBrush has got to go, okay, first contact point goes here, but now you need this point to go to here. So in order to do that, it's got to rotate the cone down to do that. And then the third point makes it so I want it flat along this plane. So that third point also is helping here and saying now that point goes there. That just solidifies the cone being flipped upside down and then being flat across that plane. Does this make sense for people? I wanted to show this because this was, for me, really how I understood how I can even control this as an artist and use 1 point, 2 points, or 3 points in what way I wanted to manipulate this.
Yeah, looking at the chat right now, this is actually a really great example because this is really showcasing it. You even got Mr. Thomas Whittlebach's attention on this one. So I can already see all the jewelry functions he's going to use this for. But yeah, no, this makes a lot more sense. And it seems that the chat is agreeing.
Yeah, by the way, this is new. This is an update to contact. So the contact that you have now, Spoofy Mama, you're trying to use it. The version you have does not work this way. We have changed the way contact works. And we are now using it as an alignment, rotation feature, transformation feature to do things much easier. Yeah. That's what we're doing here, right? So you think about in the context of anything that you do now, especially like me, I'm a big fan of the hard surface stuff, right? So I can now, even if I wanted to start, I want to start aligning some spikes along this ship, there's nothing stopping me now from saying, okay, let's append that cone here, right? And you can see this is all the way at the bottom, and this is how the cone is right now to the space, right? So I can switch back to this transpose line, and I can say, I just want it to move there to there. And then now I want to make one contact point for that. So I can delete them all, right? And then contact, and then append, and then boom. And then again, this is already in alignment. So I can switch to scale, and I'm using my hotkeys, and then I can scale this down if I want to, scale it up, whatever I want to do. I can rotate this, right? However I want this to work, right? And I'm just switching. And then I can even move it and then move it along that line of that normal if I want to. Is this making sense? And then the thing to highlight, everybody, the gizmo's different. Transpose line always moves with the model. So wherever the model's going, the transpose line. So what we've also added is the transpose line is being also realigned perfectly for you. Where the gizmo, if I hit Y, it's going back to the original position. So gizmo does not move with the model. Transpose line does. So you've got 2 ways to rotate, move, and manipulate the surface here. And we're just using that transpose line because we need a point of interest from the start to where do I want it to move to. Right, but there's nothing stopping me. I can switch to this if I wanted to, right? And then move this where I want it to be as well. Hopefully that helps get that understood a lot more for everybody. Yes?
Yeah. No, I think that was fantastic, Paul.
So again, everybody was already starting to try this because you already have contact points. So these are new additions for a new version of ZBrush that is going to become available to you for Maxon subscribers tomorrow. So we are now going to be in ZBrush 2023.2. So again, to highlight, you're going to get 4 main new additions to your ZBrush. Number 1 being, obviously now you have Anchor Brush, which is extremely powerful. You've got these contact ability now to manipulate and move things where you want them to go. You now have the morph target working with the morph brush working with your undo history. And then you've got the 2 new sliders for spotlight to really manipulate how you want the surface being pushed and pulled from the alphas or textures that you're using with inside. And again, I want to reiterate about the Anchor Brush. I can't stress this enough to you all. This is version 1. We have a lot more other things we're working on with this brush, but because it's at the state where it's at, where we ourselves are really already starting to make really big changes to our meshes and really manipulating our surface with this brush, we want to give it to you right now. And so you can start working with it, moving with it, because there is more coming for this brush. Okay, there's more coming. This is just the first version.
Yep, absolutely. No, I've already fallen in love with this brush. At the point it's at, I was like, okay, I have to immediately. I was actually working on my shark model. For those of you who follow me, like I shared what that shark model looks like, and I was already like posing it the traditional way with the gizmo and then moving stuff, masking it, going to transpose master. Here, I literally just went to transpose master, used the anchor brush, and started moving it, and I got a way better feel of how that shark would actually move. And so then I decided let's build the model utilizing anchor points as the main bread and butter, and this octopus came from that. So it's definitely the version 1 right now for this brush is already super powerful, which is why we want to give it to you. So yeah, definitely give it a shot and let us know what you think of it as well. But we have, like Paul said, we have a lot more plans for it.
Yeah, and then Ian and I really have some more ideas for this project that we're working on, that we're hopefully getting it to the state that's in our heads to do it, and be sharing that with you as well. Because there's a lot more we both want to do with both of these pieces and make more of a scene with it even too. But that's it. So recapping again, a new version's dropping tomorrow for subscribers of Maxon. It's going to be ZBrush 2023.2. 4 main features, anchors being a huge addition here, brush. That again is version 1.0. We have new sliders for your spotlight. We've got the morph brush now we're working on undo history, and the contacts has been changed and updated to allow us to adjust and move things around in the space really fast. So, and this is going to be available for you all to go rewatch again. This will immediately be up on our YouTube channel. And I think I got all the questions, Ian. Is there anything I missed?
No, I think that's about it. Just everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And Kyle in the background had dropped a link about free t-shirts. So if you were watching this, there was a code that was dropped as well. So you can go get a free t-shirt, just pay for shipping. And then the other thing I want to mention too, while we have everyone's attention, is that the ZBrush Summit, you know, there is registration available right now for the ZBrush Summit. So I'm going to share a link in the description. It's going to be open to the public. So if you're here in LA, you're going to want to definitely hang out with us. But we're going to have more information coming on that as soon as possible. So keep an eye out for that. But if you haven't registered already, then definitely go ahead and register. But also too, there will be an online component as well, because if you can't be here, we understand that, but we'd like you to see the ZBrush Summit in some way, somehow. So we are going to have that in-person and online hybrid this year. So go register for that. And yeah, outside of that, I just want to, again, thank everyone for coming in, checking us out. Definitely try the new features. If you make something with the feature, don't be afraid to tag us on social media. Show us what you're working on, or post in ZBrush Central, and just showcase, you know, the stuff that you're utilizing it. And because we'd love to see that stuff. So definitely tag us in that. And that's about it. So again, thank you, everyone. And yeah, voila, as they say.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Bye.